Okay, so we're going to put together a Windows deployment server, and I already did my differencing disk to point to my parent. I've already got the server up and running. It took all of a minute, and all I got to do is accept, and we'll set our default password, a capital PASSWORD01. Same thing we've been using on our other machines. We'll go ahead and accept that. Enhanced, because what that's going to allow me to do is copy and paste. I'll be able to copy from my base computer or my host computer onto my virtual machine. So in my Google Chrome, if I search for well, first off, let's tell you what, let's go into our lab worksheet, and I'll show you the section that I'm referring to. If I go in here to Lab 6, right here, oops, that went away. ADK. Okay, so here you can see they talk about copying the ADK setup file, ADK setup, ADK WinPE setup. And you'll notice that it refers to Windows PE add-on for the Automated Deployment Toolkit version 1809. So I'm going to search for that same thing. Download and install the Windows ADK, docs@microsoft.com. So here is my link. I can go right here. There's two different links. Now that says ADK for Windows 11. That's not what I want. I want an older one. Here's all those different versions listed. ADK for version 1809 and WinPE add-on. So these are the two versions that you want to get when you go to do this. Because remember, we're not working with Server 2019, we're working with Server 2016. Sorry about that. So I'll open that in a new tab. It's already downloading. I'm going to do the same thing for the WinPE add-on for ADK version 1809. And now I've already got these. I'll be able to copy and paste those into my virtual machine. I'm going to jump back over here. It already sees my cyber.local domain. I'm going to join this to the domain. I'm going to give it a static IP address just like I would any other server. If I look under status, I can see what IP I've got right now. It's a 192.168 Class C subnet. So I'm going to go into Properties, IPv4, and we'll use 192.168.1. Let's do .30 just for whatever. And I believe I set my gateway to 250, but I'm going to make sure of that first. So if I do a command prompt, ipconfig/all, gateway is 1.1. Good thing I checked. So 1.1, DNS server 192.168.1.2. That'll let me do my domain join. Yep, sees the network. We'll close. I'm going to rename and join it to the domain at the same time. Change. We'll set the name. I'm going to call it cyber WDS. And the domain is cyber.local. That's just the domain that I created for my cybersecurity class. See if it sees it. And there we go. Straighter. And see if I can remember the password that I used here. I don't remember if it's the same one or not. Nope. Let's try that again. know what I can use. And I gotta remember what password I used. Nope, taking its time. Nope. Well, now. Let's see here. Hands-on projects. Let's take a look here. Nope, not going to be in there. Not that. Oh, I apologize for this. While I'm searching, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so I changed my network configuration. We've joined it to our MCSA 2016.local domain. Of course, it's going to tell me that I need to restart. Primary name change, don't worry about that. I've seen that error before. It's going to work fine. I'm going to click OK, going to click Close, going to restart now. I'm telling you right now, ignore that error. The domain join happened just fine. We'll wait for it to come back up. I'm going to log into our same administrative client that we created, system administrator. So had I not been successfully able to join this to my domain, I couldn't use those credentials. Remember, if I typed in administrator, it would have then again tried to log me in as the local administrator. Another reason why we don't use the administrator account, aside from all the cyber perspectives and implications for that. So I've got my system. It's joined to the domain. It's got a static IP address. It is a server that I can use. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back over to my base machine. I'm going to go to my downloads folder and I'm going to grab those two files that I copied over. Now remember that you could run out of space, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new hard drive, differencing disk. We'll call it storage, WDS, and I'll just let it be 127 gig. We'll finish. I'll click OK. If I right click and go to disk management, I can bring that online. I can initialize it as GPT by default. I can format it, new simple volume, next, next. We'll let it be drive D. In fact, I'm going to name the volume. I'm going to name it WDS storage. And there's my D drive. We'll go to File Explorer. We'll open up WD. I'm going to create a new folder and we'll call it, I'm just going to call it TMP for temp. It's going to be somewhere where I can just paste my files in there. Now I got the files that I need. We want to manage, we're going to add a role and a feature. I'm going to click Next, Next, Next. I'm going to scroll all the way down. Right there is Windows Deployment Services. We'll add our administrative features. Next, Next, Next. There's those two roles that it's going to install, the deployment server and the transport server. We'll go install. It's going to take a few moments. We've got DHCP running on our domain controller in our test environment. So we've got DHCP, we're joined to Active Directory, we've got the prerequisites that we need. While this is going on, I'm going to tell that ADK to install. So I'm going to jump back over here, go back into my temp folder, and I'm going to start the installation of this. Why wait for one thing to get done if I can do two things at the same time? Tell it where to install. I'm going to change this to D. I'm going to put it over. Remember, our system drive, the C drive, is where we want our operating system to work its absolute best. The less things that we install over there, the more efficiently that operating system is going to function. Microsoft doesn't need our anonymous data. We accept. We're going to uncheck everything but deployment tools. Were I doing this on a live machine, if this was going to be my production, I'd probably do user state migration tool. There'd be other things that I would install. We're not going to do that. All we need is the deployment tools. Hopefully this runs pretty quick. While that's going on, I'm going to take a look at our progress. Installation succeeded. I can close. While my install continues, just about done. In fact, it's going fast enough. I think we'll just wait here for a moment. And as I say that, it stops. Okay, I'm going to go over to Tools. And here's my Windows Deployment Services. We'll wait for that to load. Now remember, we've installed the service, or we've installed the role, but we need to configure the role. I'm going to expand servers. I'm going to select my server. I'm going to right-click on it and say Configure Server. It tells us some of the things that have to be there for it to be able to function. We'll do Next. It's integrated with Active Directory. Check. My remote install path, I'm going to change that to D. I'm going to offload it from the operating system. Next. I'm going to say respond to all computers but require administrative approval for unknown computers. Next. It's copying files, it's doing my configuration, and it's starting the service. I'm going to uncheck Add Images now. I'm not ready to do that. I'm just going to click Finish. You can see it created a number of directories for us. This is where we're going to put our boot image and our install image. If I look over on my ADK process, it's done. I'm going to run the ADK WinPE setup, getting all these things out of the way before I need to use them. Click Next, Next, Accept, and Install. Now while that's running, I'm going to add the ISO for my data center eval. That's going to give me access to my boot WIM and my install WIM. That's the two things that I'm going to need. So we're going to do a DVD drive, add, image file. We're going to browse to our data center eval. I could also do this for Windows 10. That's what you'll be doing in your final. You're going to deploy Windows 10. So you know what? Since that's what you're going to do in your final, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to open that. I'm going to click OK. Over here on this PC, I now see my installation disk. I'm going to open that. I'm going to navigate to my Sources folder. I'm going to scroll down, look for boot WIM. Oh, we already went past it. There's my boot WIM. I'm also going to scroll down till I see Install WIM. It's right there. I'm going to hold the Control button down. That allows me to select multiple items. I'll hit Control C to copy. and I'm going to copy those to my D drive. I'm going to put those in my temp folder as well. We can see all that copying over as we speak. Looking over here, that 80K WinPE setup, that takes longer. That's why I'm trying to do multiple things at one time, right? While that's continuing on, I'm copying all the files that I need, and I'm just about done. Okay, I've got my boot WIM, I've got my install WIM. I'm going to close out of File Explorer. I'm going to go back to Windows Deployment Services. I'm going to select boot images. I'm going to right click and say add boot image. And where is that boot image? Where is that boot WIM? It's on my D drive in my temp folder. There's my boot.wim. I'm going to open. I'm going to click next. It's Microsoft Windows Setup. That's the way it's going to be presented in my screen, so I'll know what it is. It's the boot WIM. Next, and it's going to import it. It's checking it, and it's going to import that into Windows Deployment Services. So we got a few different things going on here. We're bringing in the boot WIM. We're setting up our ADK pre-installation environment. And we should be done in here in just a moment. With that, now we've got the ability to PXE boot to this server, to be able to connect to it as a network source for installation files. But we don't have anything to install yet. Now we will. I'm going to select Install Images. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say Add in Image Group. I want to be able to group my different images. So I'm going to say Image Group and I'm going to call it Windows 10. Now in Windows 10, I'm going to right click and add Install Image. Where am I going to browse to? Same folder I was just in, d:/tmp or temp. Right there's my install WIM. I'll open, click next. There's only one in this. It's the Enterprise Eval. I'll click next. Were this another version of Windows 10, there might be multiple versions listed there, just like there is in our Windows server. Next, and it's going to add that. This is going to take a little bit longer because that's a lot larger image. Back over here, we're up to 43%. So you can see now some of these things take a little bit longer, right? At this point, we could connect to this. Once this is done, we'll be able to connect to this and deploy a copy of Windows 10. Believe it or not, that's all it takes for the most basic setup. The ADK that I installed, that gives me the ability to set many of the options that the user would see. You know, what language do you have? What keyboard layout do you have? Set all that in an answer file so that they don't have to answer those questions. They may not know the answers to the questions, right? We want to make this as automated as possible. For right now, I'm not going to do that. I'm waiting. There's my ADK. There's my WinPE done. So I've got my Windows 10 right here. I've got my boot image here. There are some other options that we could set. For example, we could go into that image and we could specify if I had an auto unattend answer file, I could select it here. There's two different places that I can give answer files. Remember when you first connect, you connect to the pre-installation environment. This is where you're saying, yeah, I want to install, and I want to install to this disk and create these partitions. That's all before the actual operating system gets installed. That I configure not here, but as an option for the server. If I go into properties for my server, I can see a number of different options. For example, Pixie response. That's that answer that I gave during my setup. Boot. During the boot process, what image do I want to use? I could have a specific image. Client. Here's my auto unattend that I can specify. So during the initial connection, how do I respond to DHCP? If this, remember in those instructions, it said that if DHCP is installed on this machine, check both the boxes. These are those two boxes. However, DHCP is not on this machine. So we do want it to listen to the DHCP ports. We are not using this machine as the Pixie server. It's a different machine. So neither one of these gets checked. We've got multicast options. We've got some advanced options. Network information, trivial file transfer protocol options. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another virtual machine. I'm just going to call it Test Deploy WDS. Generation 2. And let's see, that was my private virtual switch. Next, we'll let it create a disk. We're going to tell it install an operating system from a network-based installation server. Next, finish. Let's see if this is going to work. I want to change my settings. I'm going to uncheck those automatic checkpoints. Access it. We're going to click Start. Let's see if it connects. It's not. It's not connecting. Private virtual switch. Private virtual switch. At least I don't think it's connecting. It's not giving me an error message. It didn't like it. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to try something. I'm going to try doing a Generation 1 machine. Test, deploy, WDS, V2. Create a virtual hard disk. We're going to tell it to use that network operating system and finish. That worked. At least it's trying to get a IP address. I'm going to jump over to my domain controller and see what's going on over there. Where did I put DHCP? I could have sworn I installed DHCP. Did I not? We don't have DHCP, do we? That's why this is going to fail. Our lab environment's not using DHCP. That's why this is just going to sit there. And eventually it's going to fail. Let's see how fast I can recover from this. Interesting. No, okay, yeah, I have DHCP on my other lab environment, but not this one. That's why it couldn't get an IP address. That's why it couldn't find a network source. We'll let this finish. Okay, we'll complete our configuration. Click Next. We'll commit. Done. Close. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a scope. We can do this pretty quickly. New scope. I'm just going to call it new scope. Starting IP. We're going to, whoops, 192, 168, 1 dot, we'll start at 150, from 150 to 159. No exclusions. Yes, I do. I want to specify my gateway address. Click Add. It already sees the domain. I want a different address. I want to add 1.1. We'll go Next, Next, Activate, Finish. If I look over on leases, I'm going to go back to my first virtual machine. I'm going to see if that will start, and if it'll connect, rather. There we go. Enter for network boot. Waiting for approval. So I need to go back over to my WDS. If I look under pending devices, if I refresh this, there's my pending device. Request number 1. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say approve. Was approved. Back over here, waiting for approval. It should start in just a moment. There it goes, contacting the server. Here comes my boot WIM. This is going to give me my pre-installation environment. There is no capture WIM. There's no other boot environments available, so it didn't even ask me what do I want to choose. If I've got multiple boot WIMs available, if I've got a capture WIM, I would have a list of which do you want. So here it's asking me where are you at? What keyboard input do you want? These are those questions that you don't normally see. Now, who's got the rights to connect? Well, MCSA 2016/sadmin. Our password, and there's my copy of Windows 10 to install. Next. I'm just going to click Next. You can have all this automated. Here again, do you want the users to have domain credentials, domain admin, or the specific permissions to be able to install? No! You automate it. You create that answer file, that auto unattend. It's got the answers in it. They never see it. All they see is this screen right here. that it's installing. They may not even see it because it could be happening behind the scenes. So that's going to roll through for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video again while that's installing. And as soon as it's completed, we'll restart the video. Okay, so while that's installing, we're going to go over here. We're going to go to Windows Kits on our WDS server, and I'm going to select the WinSim, Windows System Image Manager. Right now, all it is a bunch of empty boxes. The first thing that we need to do is we need to select a distribution share. So we don't have one to select. Actually, we need to create it. So I'm going to go here again. I'm going to go to my D drive, and we'll make a new folder, and we're going to call it disk share. Select that. So now we've got a place to store things. Now we need to select an image that we want to, remember each image, each copy of Windows 10, copy of Windows Server, Windows 8.1, Server 2016, 2019, they're going to have different options. So each operating system is going to have a different answer file. Select a Windows image or catalog file. So I need to select a Windows image. I right-clicked on that, by the way. Where am I going to find that image? I'm going to go to my temp folder. The install.wim. I'm going to click open. Catalog file for Windows image, Windows 10 Enterprise Evaluation, so it understands what it is. Can't be opened because it doesn't exist yet. We didn't create the catalog file. Do you want to create a catalog file? I sure do. Click yes. Yes. And now it's reading that copy, that operating system, and it's going to create a catalog of all the various options that we can set for that auto unattend, for that answer file. This is going to take a few minutes. While that's going on, I want to see where our Windows 10 deployment's at. Hey, it's done installing. It's getting ready to configure itself. It's probably going to reboot maybe a time or two, and then it'll be up and going. And I'll have a client system that could be joined to my domain. I can craft group policies to control how it works. Just the same way as each one of our computers are part. Now see here again, that answer file, that second half of the answer file, remember the one is the boot environment, where we're pre-installing everything. The second half of that we configure for the OS answers questions like this. What region are we in? Allows us to bypass a lot of these prompts. I always wondered where that important setup is. We've got some important setup to do. Oh, Microsoft Magic. Okay. Let's go back and take a look back on our CyberD. Okay, we're still copying, still creating. We'll come back to that in a few moments. Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to turn it off. Here again, while this setup's finishing, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. We don't need to watch old swirly going around. So our license agreement's here. We simply accept it. It says, hey, you're licensed to use a copy of this software. You don't own it. Scrolling around, it's going to disappear. Still doing setup. We've still got other questions to answer because we did not use an auto unattend. That XML file saves us with a lot of things. Now, we're not going to sign in with a Microsoft account. We're going to sign in by saying domain join instead. Here again, this could all be automated. Who's going to use this? I'm just going to say user. And it's going to say create a password. Okay, I'm just going to use our same password that we've been using all along. re-enter it. Whether you're doing a domain join or not, you still have to go through all these things. I'm just going to use the same basic questions I always use. Security question 1, I'm just going to press the down arrow once. It says, what's your pet's first name? Yeah, you know what? It was Pet. Down arrow. What's the city you were born? I was born in City. Question number 3, what was your childhood nickname? It was Nickname. I had a very unimaginable childhood. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it, right? Here again, a lot of things that we can bypass through that auto unattend. Then we're going to get a question about Cortina. No, not right now. And finally, we're going to have all the questions answered. But your users probably won't know the answers to these questions. They're just going to pick whatever they think. That's why it's important to have that auto unattend XML file. Finally, now it's creating my user account, my local user account on our Windows 10. Let's see where WDS is at with my... Okay, it's done. Here are all the various settings that we can configure. Each one of these. So, for example, if you see the... Let me see if I can bring up magnifier on here. Make it a little bit easier for you to see. So, for example, Windows International Core WinPE. So, WinPE, this is options for when we're doing our pre-installation. If I expand that, set the UI language. Here again, I don't have anything added yet, so I can't add these. If I take a look, let me get over here. I'm going to open up my document. This is the section where they talk about crafting a WinPE, an auto unattend, sorry about that. So they're looking to go AMD, Microsoft Windows International Core, WinPE neutral. Let's see if I can find that. Isn't that the one we were supposed to be looking for? Sure thought it was. AMD, was I in the wrong section? Probably was. Nope, I was in the right section. So I'm not sure why it's not letting me. I may have skipped something here. Oh, yep, I had to. Let's see here. Expand components. Oh, I got to say new answer file first. I think that's what it was. Let's see if that's... New answer file. There. Now it adds in the components for me to be able to do this. Sorry. Now if I select setup language, if I right click, I can add setting to pass 1. The Windows pre-installation environment. User interface language, EN-US. Just that simple. So this is how you go through and you add all those various options. I'm going to take this back off of full screen. If we look over here, so add to pass 1. Windows International Core, Windows PE. Remember, this is looking at server, not Windows 10. Windows 10 is a little bit different. So in the answer file for en-us, we can select that. Over here we've got other options. So here again, input local -en-us, system local en-us, all different places that you specify what the environment should be. Were we not in the US? Different language codes. Now you look here, now they talk about going into Windows Setup. It's right down here, right here. If we expand that, there's a lot of different things that we're going to add. So we add to pass 1, and now this gives us the ability to specify what install image what specific install image do we want to use? How do we want to configure the disks, create their partitions? This is all of that environment that says, hey, set that disk up this way and use this image file to install to it. All those questions that we were presented, they all go away. And you can do this for each specific image. So you could create this pre-installation environment for that UEFI or setup, pointing to Windows Server 2016. The same thing pointing to Windows 10. Under the install image, you actually tell it where to find it. Install from. And the credentials. Remember it asked us for credentials at one point? So this would be credentials allowing us to do such. So a lot of different things that you can answer in here. But you could do these basic settings, or you don't have to do any. You can hit all the enter, 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 next, 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 next. But automating is a lot easier. There's a lot of these answer files that you can find online. If you search Microsoft for it, they'll tell you what the settings are you need to do a BIOS installation. They'll tell you what the settings are that you need to do for a UEFI installation. Microsoft Docs has a wealth of information on how you do this. I'm just going to tell it just to go ahead and save this, and we'll save it as first answer file. And save. If we come over, here's our virtual machine. And if I want to, I can go ahead and do a domain join. It's got an IP address, it knows about the domain, it knows all the information that I need to be able to join this to my network. If I come back over to this other one, I'm going to turn it off and then turn it back on. It's going to get an IP address. At least it should. Yep, there it goes. And press F12. You notice the other one said press enter. The BIOS, it says press F12. If I come back over to my WDS machine, go back into Windows Deployment Services, I'm going to see that request waiting for me under pending devices. There's number 2. Approve. It was approved. Contacting server. That's what gave it, and here it goes. Same process. It's going to go ahead and it's going to install. So let's see if it understood any difference between the way that they were crafted or not. I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to disk management. I've got 3 different partitions. It created a number of different partitions. Partition 1, I see partition 4, the C drive. There's at least 3 partitions right there that were created automatically. Now when this completes, since it's BIOS, there'll probably only be 2 partitions. But same setup, same process. One's UEFI, the other is BIOS. I'm going to get the same questions because I have not provided an answer file. Oh, I've got to tell it the name of the domain. I didn't do that. And you'll notice you do that with the slash. There's my install. Grab that. We'll click a bunch of times. There it goes. So our installation is going to complete, and just in that time, it's been an hour. There was a lot of fumbling around because I was starting cold. I built the virtual machine, the server. I joined that server to my domain. I installed the roles. I forgot that I didn't have DHCP. I installed that role on my domain controller. I did a lot of extra things. And still, I'm in the process of deploying my second copy of Windows 10. Think about once you've got something like this built, and you start to craft those unattend files, and you configure everything in Windows Deployment Services, and it just happens automatically. So the next time you need to install a copy of Windows 10 or Windows Server, whatever it might be, you simply connect. You say, you know, hey, we need to upgrade to a newer version. We've tested this out. We've been running an older version of Windows 10. We're fully confident in its abilities. Here's another thing that you're going to learn about group policies. You can redirect everybody's documents, pictures, favorites, all those folders for users. You can redirect them to a file share somewhere on a server. So nothing a user saves gets stored on the machine. The host computer that the user's set in front of becomes disposable. Because they're not storing anything on that computer, here again, smaller hard drives. You don't need a big hard drive. You take that, you say, you know what, we're ready to upgrade. Because group policy is what dictates where those user shares are at, you simply create that new golden image with all their applications and such on it. At your discretion, you deploy it out to those machines. They come in the next day, they log into with their domain credentials. It has to do that initial user account, local account creation, creating their user structure and such. Group policy says, oh, hey, you need to connect over here. Everything populates. Nothing ever changed. The only thing that changed is they've got a new copy of Windows. Users are happy. You did a lot less work. You're happy. That's what it's all about. Efficiency. And the efficiency makes your life better, makes your job easier. Makes your boss happier too. Everybody's happy. If only we were all happy, right? I'm just wasting time waiting for this to sit at 100% and reboot. But that's the process that we go through. So remember that we're getting the ADK. Remember those 2 initial install files, the ADK setup and the ADK WinPE setup. Both the EXEs, we searched for those specifically for 1809. We found that by searching, and then we came down to the other ADK downloads because we're not working with the latest version. We came down to ADK for Windows 10 version 1809 and WinPE add-on for ADK version 1809. Once we had those, and I created my virtual machine that was going to host my WDS, because I was using an enhanced desktop, I was able to copy and paste those files right into it. And from there, we just rolled along. Looks like this is done installing. It's going to restart, and then it's going to ask me all those same questions again. I can just hit escape to stop that Pixie boot, because unlike UEFI, this thing thinks I still want to boot from the network. Once it shuts down, I don't think I can do it while it's running. Nope, it's all grayed out. I have to turn it off and change the boot order and tell it not the network adapter. I want to boot from IDE. Over here on my UEFI machine, it understood. You'll notice I can change the boot order while it's running. Unlike BIOS, I can't. But it understood. Initially, I booted from the network. I installed an operating system, boot to that operating system. Another reason why UEFI is more efficient. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end our video. Hopefully this recorded okay, that you can hear my audio. I think I've got that bug worked out from that previous time. And again, I'm going to post this up to my YouTube channel. Thank you.